Tilare's crystalline data pad clattered to the floor of the Interspecies Research Facility's gymnasium. Her violet scales flickered in disbelief as she watched Lieutenant Daniel Porter effortlessly lift a 200-kilogram training weight with a single arm. As a Zaraxian xenobiologist specializing in comparative species strength, she'd studied dozens of alien races, but humans continued to defy her expectations. "Is everything all right, Dr. Tilare?" Daniel asked, setting down the weight with careful control. His muscles rippled beneath his training uniform, and Tilare noticed her scales involuntarily shifting to a deeper purple, a Zaraxian physiological response to impressive displays of strength. "Fascinating," she managed, quickly retrieving her data pad. "Your species evolved on a high-gravity world, but this exceeds all theoretical models. The force required to lift that mass with such control." Daniel smiled, grabbing a towel to wipe the sweat from his broad shoulders. This is just a warm-up. Most human males can train to lift significantly more, especially when we're trying to impress someone." Tilare's head crest extended fully, a sign of intense scientific interest. "You mean this display of strength serves a reproductive purpose? A mating ritual?" "Well, we don't usually think of it that directly," Daniel chuckled, taking a drink from his water bottle. "But yeah, staying strong and fit definitely plays a role in human attraction. Historical evidence suggests our ancestors often competed for mates through feats of strength." Moving to the research facility's testing equipment, Tilare began taking detailed readings. "Your hormone levels are elevated, but nowhere near maximum. You're capable of even greater exertion." "Much greater," Daniel confirmed, approaching her testing station. "Especially in certain situations. Humans can tap into something we call adrenaline strength, a massive power boost when protecting potential mates or family members." Tilare's scales rippled with excitement as she recorded this information. Zaraxian males, evolved for a low-gravity environment, relied on elaborate courtship displays of agility and color. The raw power humans could exhibit was almost frightening, and undeniably intriguing. "Would you be willing to participate in a comprehensive study?" she asked, trying to maintain professional composure. "My research team is documenting interspecies mating behaviors, particularly focusing on physical capabilities." Daniel's eyes met hers, and Tilare felt her scales flood with color again. There was something primal in his gaze, a confidence that came from knowing his own strength. "I'd be happy to help advance interspecies understanding," he said with a slight grin. "Though I hope you're prepared to be surprised. Humans have a lot of capabilities that aren't in your data banks." As if to demonstrate, he casually picked up a massive piece of training equipment that 3 Zaraxian males would struggle to move together. Tilare watched, transfixed, as his muscles flexed and tensed with controlled power. Her scientific objectivity was rapidly being challenged by a more primitive response to his display. "Remarkable," she whispered, her voice carrying a tremor she couldn't quite control. "Your species developed this strength for survival, yet maintains such precise control." "Control is crucial," Daniel said, carefully returning the equipment to its place. "Humans had to evolve not just strength, but the ability to regulate it. Especially in intimate situations." His words carried a deeper meaning that made Tilare's scales shimmer with iridescent patterns she hadn't displayed since her youth. The facility's artificial day cycle was beginning to dim, signaling the end of the research period. Tilare reluctantly began packing up her equipment, her mind racing with questions about human physical capabilities, and not all of them strictly scientific. "Same time tomorrow?" Daniel asked, gathering his training gear. "I could show you some more traditional human strength demonstrations. Things that might help with your research." Tilare's head crest bobbed in eager agreement before she could compose herself. "Yes, that would be scientifically valuable. Though I should warn you, Zaraxian researchers can be quite thorough in their observations." "I'm counting on it," Daniel replied with a smile that displayed his strong teeth, another feature that sent an unexpected shiver through Tilare's scales. After all, humans can be quite thorough too. As she watched him leave the gymnasium, Tilare realized her research was about to become far more complex, and far more personal, than she'd anticipated. The strength of humans wasn't just in their muscles, but in their ability to shake the foundations of everything she thought she knew about interspecies attraction. The data pad in her hands blinked with readings that would revolutionize Zaraxian understanding of human physiology. But Tilare was beginning to suspect that no amount of scientific data could fully capture the primal impact of human strength, or the effect it was having on her supposedly objective research. The research facility's testing chamber hummed with energy as Daniel stood in the center, surrounded by holographic monitoring equipment. Tilare watched from behind the control panel, her scales shifting between professional blue and excited purple as she calibrated the sensors. Today's tests will measure your maximum lifting capacity and sustained strength output, she announced, trying to keep her voice steady. We'll also monitor your hormone levels during various, mating-relevant scenarios. Daniel's grin made her scales flutter. Mating-relevant scenarios? Sounds interesting. Just remember, human strength isn't just about lifting weights. The first test began with basic strength measurements. Daniel's muscles flexed as he lifted increasingly heavy loads, each display of power causing ripples of color through Tilare's scales. The readings were unprecedented. He was exceeding Zaraxian strength limits by factors of 5 or more. Incredible, Tilare muttered, recording the data. Your muscle density is far beyond our previous estimates. The force required to, she stopped mid-sentence as Daniel casually lifted a weight that their equipment had classified as impossible for humanoid species. You haven't seen anything yet, Daniel said, his skin glistening with sweat. This is just raw strength. Humans get much stronger when we're motivated by protective instincts or. He paused, meeting her gaze, attraction. Tilare's head crest extended fully as her scales blazed with color. Perhaps we should test that theory. For scientific purposes, of course. She activated a training scenario, a holographic simulation of various threats approaching a potential mate. Daniel's response was immediate and primal. His strength readings doubled as he moved with explosive power, neutralizing each threat with controlled force that made Tilare's scientific detachment waver. Your protective instincts trigger a massive surge in strength, she noted, her voice trembling slightly. The combination of intelligence and raw power is unprecedented. Other alien researchers had gathered to observe, their expressions ranging from fear to fascination. A Nexilian scientist dropped his data pad when Daniel demolished the facility's previous strength record. During a break between tests, Tilare approached Daniel with a hydration pack. Your species evolved these capabilities through mate selection, she asked, watching a bead of sweat trail down his muscular arm. Partly, he replied, taking the drink. Human females historically chose mates who could protect and provide. Strength was a key factor. His eyes met hers. Though nowadays, it's more about showing restraint and control. To demonstrate, he reached out and gently took her data pad with the same hands that had just bent metal. The delicate touch sent shivers through Tilare's scales. Fascinating dichotomy, she whispered. Such power, yet such precise control. The afternoon's tests continued, each demonstration of strength making it harder for Tilare to maintain scientific objectivity. When Daniel performed a traditional human mating ritual called a workout, several female researchers from different species had to excuse themselves from the observation room. Your strength seems to affect females across species, Tilare noted, her own scales betraying her reaction with waves of deep purple. The biological response is nearly universal. Daniel moved closer to her monitoring station, his presence making her instrument spike with readings. I've noticed something similar, he said softly. Particularly from one Zaraxian researcher. Tilare's scales blazed with color. That's an interesting observation. Perhaps we should conduct more detailed tests. Privately. Privately sounds good, Daniel agreed, casually lifting a massive piece of equipment with one arm while maintaining eye contact. I have some theories about human Zaraxian compatibility that weren't in your research proposal. The other researchers gradually filed out as the day's official tests concluded, leaving Tilare alone with Daniel and her rapidly deteriorating scientific objectivity. Her scales had settled into a deep, passionate purple that no Zaraxian could misinterpret. Tomorrow's tests will focus on endurance, she managed to say, her professional tone slipping. Humans claim to have exceptional stamina in various activities. Daniel's smile made her head crest fully extend. I look forward to demonstrating that particular capability. Thoroughly. As Tilare watched him leave, she realized her research had crossed a line. She wasn't just studying human strength anymore, she was being irresistibly drawn to it. Her report would shock the Zaraxian Science Council, but not nearly as much as her growing personal interest in her test subject. The data didn't lie, humans weren't just strong, they were evolutionary perfected specimens of controlled power. And Tilare was beginning to understand why so many species found themselves attracted to that combination of strength and restraint, of raw power and gentle touch. Tomorrow's endurance tests couldn't come soon enough. The Wilderness Training Facility on Nexus 7 was designed to test the survival capabilities of various species. Today, it would witness something unprecedented. Tilare stood with a group of alien researchers as Daniel prepared for the survival challenge, a grueling test of strength and instinct. This simulation will replicate extreme survival conditions, she announced, her scales shimmering with anticipation. We'll observe human protective responses in life-threatening situations. The facility's artificial environment shifted, creating a harsh landscape of towering cliffs and dangerous terrain. Daniel stripped off his shirt, revealing the muscular physique that had dominated Tilare's research data, and her dreams. Remember, he said, stretching his powerful arms, humans are persistence predators. We don't just rely on burst strength. The simulation began. Holographic predators emerged from the shadows, each larger than the last. Daniel's movements were explosive, his muscles coiling with primitive power as he engaged each threat. The alien observers gasped as he lifted a fallen tree trunk that would require mechanical assistance on their worlds. Tilare's instruments recorded everything, his accelerated heart rate, the surge of combat hormones, the raw power output that exceeded their sensors' capacity. But it was the primal grace of his movements that held her transfixed. The simulation took an unexpected turn when the facility's safety protocols malfunctioned. Real danger replaced the holograms as support beams groaned overhead. Daniel's reaction was instant. He launched himself toward Tilare as the structure began to collapse. Time seemed to slow. She felt his arms wrap around her, muscles bulging as he shielded her body with his own. The impact of falling debris that would have crushed her bounced off his back. His strength, no longer measured by instruments but demonstrated in raw survival, was staggering. Hold tight, he growled, his voice deep with protective instinct. He shifted her weight to one arm, his other hand gripping a support beam. With a roar that made Tilare's scales ripple with primal response, he bent the metal upward, creating an escape route. Other researchers scrambled for safety, but Tilare remained cradled against Daniel's chest, feeling the thunderous beating of his heart. His skin was hot, slick with sweat, radiating power that made her scientific detachment evaporate completely. Once outside, he set her down with surprising gentleness. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his hands moving over her scales with careful attention. "I'm functioning optimally," she managed, her scales cycling through colors of excitement and attraction. That display of strength was beyond our measurement capabilities. Daniel's eyes locked with hers. "Humans are strongest when protecting someone we care about," he said softly. "And I wasn't about to let anything happen to my favorite researcher." The other scientists were babbling about equipment damage and safety protocols, but Tilare barely heard them. Her scales had settled into the deep purple of mate selection, a color she'd never displayed before. "I believe," she said, her scientific tone cracking, "we should conduct a private review of this incident. For thorough documentation. Daniel's smile was predatory. Thorough documentation is important. Though I might have some suggestions for additional strength tests that weren't in your original protocol. As emergency teams arrived to secure the facility, Tilare realized her research had fundamentally changed. She'd started studying human strength as an academic exercise. Now she was experiencing it personally, feeling the raw power of human protection, the primal appeal of controlled force. Your survival instincts are remarkably focused, she noted, trying to maintain some semblance of professional distance. Very focused, Daniel agreed, his hand still resting protectively on her back. Especially when I have something, or someone, worth protecting. The implications of his words sent waves of color through her scales. Her research paper would need significant revision. How could she objectively document the effect of human strength when she become living proof of its irresistible appeal? As they left the facility together, Tilare's scientific curiosity was rapidly being replaced by a more primitive interest. She'd come to study human strength. Instead, she was discovering why so many species found themselves drawn to these powerful, protective beings who combined raw force with gentle restraint. Tomorrow's research would definitely require private observation. Very private. The Zaraxian Science Council chamber erupted in chaos as Tilare presented her findings. Holograms displayed Daniel's strength metrics, each number shattering previous assumptions about human capabilities. These readings are impossible, Council Elder Vertox declared, his scales gray with dismissal. No species from a high-gravity world could maintain such power while retaining fine motor control. Tilare's scales flashed with defiance. I have documented every test. The human male can lift 6 times his body weight, demonstrate precise control, and increase strength output by 300% when protecting potential mates. The chamber's doors opened, and Daniel strode in, wearing the formal Earth military uniform that highlighted his powerful build. Several younger council members' scales shifted to impressed purple. Perhaps a demonstration, he suggested, moving to the chamber's center. Without warning, he lifted the ancient stone podium, a Zaraxian religious relic weighing nearly a ton, with controlled power. The council's collective scales flickered in shock. But it was his gentle placement of the artifact, showing perfect precision, that truly silenced their doubts. The strength readings are merely physical data, Tilare continued, her scales betraying her response to his display. More significant is their application in mating and protection. Humans have evolved to be both powerful and gentle, fierce yet controlled. And what of compatibility? A younger council member asked, noting Tilare's obvious attraction. Their strength could be dangerous for Zaraxian mates. Daniel approached Tilare, demonstrating by taking her delicate hand in his powerful one. Human strength exists to protect, not harm, he said. We can crush steel or handle the most fragile objects. It's all about control. The council watched, fascinated, as he demonstrated this control, lifting massive weights with one hand while holding a Zaraxian crystal flower in the other without damaging a single petal. Later, in Tilare's private research chamber, Daniel's control was tested in more intimate ways. Her scales shimmered with pleasure as his powerful hands proved equally skilled at gentle caresses. The council fears what they don't understand, she whispered against his chest. They see only the danger in your strength. Then we'll show them its true purpose, he replied, lifting her effortlessly. Protection. Devotion. Pleasure. Their bodies intertwined, strength meeting grace, power meeting flexibility. Tilare's research had evolved into something far more personal, and far more convincing. The Zaraxian Science Council would need to revise their understanding of human capabilities. And Tilare would need to revise her definition of perfect mate compatibility. Her final report would shock her species. But not as much as her announcement that she had personally verified every aspect of human physical capability, very thoroughly indeed. The interspecies mating conference on Central Station had drawn thousands of researchers from across the galaxy. Tilare and Daniel stood center stage, their research revolutionizing understanding of cross-species compatibility. Human strength isn't just about muscles, Tilare explained, her scales glowing with confidence. It's about adaptability, control, and protection. Behind her, holoprojections showed Daniel's remarkable physical feats. The audience gasped as they displayed footage from their survival incident. Daniel's raw power in protecting her had become legendary among xenobiologists. But it was the following clips of his gentle handling of Zaraxian artifacts that truly demonstrated human capability. Zaraxians once feared human strength, she continued. Now we understand it's the perfect complement to our own attributes. Daniel stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. Without warning, he scooped Tilare up in one powerful arm, using his other hand to manipulate complex scientific equipment with surprising dexterity. Our species evolved on different worlds, he addressed the crowd, but natural selection favored traits that make us surprisingly compatible. Human strength and Zaraxian grace. Earth's endurance and Zarax's agility. Their personal demonstration sparked a wave of interest. Other human-alien couples emerged from hiding, sharing their experiences. The Zaraxian Council's acceptance of human mates triggered a cultural revolution. In their private quarters later, Daniel proved again why human stamina had become legendary. His powerful hands explored Tilare's scales with practiced skill, drawing shimmers of pleasure across her skin. The research is complete, she murmured against his chest. Yet I find myself wanting to conduct more, thorough studies. Scientific curiosity, he teased, lifting her effortlessly. Natural selection, she replied, her scales blazing with desire. Choosing the strongest mate. Their union became a symbol of true compatibility, strength and grace, power and precision, Earth and Zarax. As they lay together, Tilare realized her research had discovered something beyond physical metrics, the perfect balance of primal force and tender care that made humans the galaxy's most desirable mates. The end.